You have to be really careful about terms and services as a musician.
What are some of the things that you're seeing from an attorney standpoint dealing with AI, whether it's the production part of things like Sonos?
In the age of AI, we have to very carefully negotiate those clauses now.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the people in the world, wherever you are, all my All Emotion family. I want to say thank you to Benton Media Lounge for allowing us to come in here, occupying this space. I have an amazing guest here, kind of like a part two, a continuation of what we started out. We have the one and only Ryan Schmidt here, music attorney. And how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, yeah. So like I said, we've already talked a few times, right, offline and even on Instagram Live. But I wanted to kind of continue that conversation formally. And, there's a lot of things going on in the music industry. As you know, I've been talking to some insiders, some A-list people, and everybody's like frantic about the whole AI chaos, right? Everything that's going on, right? So I think that would be a good start for us. I did write down some questions, but I like it better when we're kind of free flowing.
For sure.
It just comes across as more organic. So, we're starting that out. I mean,
one of the things I'm seeing right now for artists and record deals is the part in the record deal that gives the record label the right to use your name, image, and likeness. That used to be just a kind of standard throwaway clause, which would really just give them rights to say, this is the new album by artist XYZ, and here's their picture, to make sure that it's just approved likenesses and that doesn't give the record labels any right to create a generative AI version of that artist.
Have you seen any, like from a contractual standpoint, have you seen anything crazy like, cross collateralization or anything like that pop out in any of those kind of AI conversations?
No, not really. And even the idea of cross collateralization has kind of been hidden and buried in contracts. It used to be something that was really spelled out, and now it's just one quick little line. It's just assumed that everything is going to be cross collateralized, meaning that if you have one album and they fund a whole bunch of money and behind it, and that's a flop, but your next is a success, they can take the successful project and recoup that first project that didn't do so well. That's pretty standard, but in the age of AI, I haven't really seen that. Another thing I've seen is there's a lot more opt-ins going on right now with the ability to have your music trained on AI, both from a independent unsigned level, but also on the signed level. A lot of the labels are working out deals with major AI companies, not the two that they're currently suing, Suno and Udio, but other AI companies where they want to have the ability to have their artist music train these models, and the artists generally have a say on whether or not they're going to use it. But it's something that we're seeing a lot more now. It seems like the DIY approach to doing this opt-in is let's just bury it in the terms of services, and if you don't object to it, you're now opted in and you're going to be giving your music away to be trained in AI. In the major label standpoint, it's a more active opt-in, not an opt-out.
Interesting. And I know we had a conversation about some of the DSPs, and I remember we had a conversation about United Masters now, who I'm in contact with. You did mention the terms and services for TuneCore.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the challenges there. You want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, look, you have to be really careful about terms and services as a musician. They are binding contracts, especially when you're talking about these DIY distributors where you just create an account and it says, yes, I've read the terms and services. You click the little box, then nobody reads it, and then you're in the service, right? That's a binding contract, and that can limit the rights that you have with that distributor, especially if something goes wrong, like they suspect there's streaming fraud or there's some dispute. It gives them broad rights to maybe forfeit your royalties or freeze your royalties or do all this other kind of crazy stuff. TuneCore is one of the worst ones that is out there as far as what is in their standard terms and conditions. CD Baby and DistroKid are also among the highest offenders. But really the point is, whatever distributor you use, make sure that you've read those terms and conditions and you really understand what they say and what they mean for you in music career. I by no means am saying that there's any one terms and conditions that doesn't have at least one term in there that I don't love as a music lawyer, but there are plenty of distributors that don't have a ton of those types of clauses, and TuneCore's up there. When I was talking about that on my Instagram page, I was really talking about how they handle publishing and publishing administration. So most distributors don't automatically collect your publishing royalties, but there are plenty of distributors that have now partnered with publishing administrators to allow that type of service, and TuneCore is one of them. But what I don't like about what TuneCore does is there's a simple checkbox again. It's like, hey, would you like us to collect extra royalties? Check this box. And people do that, right? But now they've entered into this exclusive publishing agreement that has a lot of really restrictive terms. So you got to be really careful. It seems like a very innocent thing, but it can really lock you down for a while. So you got to know what you're signing.
That's interesting that you say publishing, because I would think as a DSP, they're not really involved with those type of royalties, right? Mechanicals only, right?
So typically a distributor doesn't handle publishing at all. They just handle putting your music onto the platforms and collecting your master royalties. But because this is a indie driven music economy, they want to be as much of a one-stop shop in the artist services as possible. So they have partnered with different publishing administrators to be able to offer those types of services. And you're seeing more and more distributors do that, but you have to opt in. And it can limit what you can do in the future with that. You wouldn't be able to sign that and then immediately turn around and sign a lucrative publishing deal because you're already locked into a publishing deal with that distributor.
For whatever duration, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's forever. Or
For sure. Yeah, it could just be that it's 1 year term, or it could be it's going to apply until you give them notice that you want to terminate. But then there's also some post-term collections periods that might delay how long it's going to take for that new publisher to collect money, which could impact what types of offers and opportunities you get.
What is, before we move on to the next question topic, what is the main thing that's so bad with that TuneCore? Because I know I've looked at some of the terms for these, because when I sign up, I'll read it. I don't care if it's 80 pages. I'll scan it. But what is it about TuneCore in particular? That one thing that I did hear you say that on Instagram. What is that one thing that is it just that they're trying to upsell you on the publishing, or what is that one thing that?
Well, it's not really one thing, but it's a combination of things. One is that they make it seem very innocent. It's very easy to sign up, and it's like, hey, would you like to get some more royalties? And what artist is going to say no to that? Because that's something that's really helpful, and it can be something that's really complicated and confusing. But in the contractual language itself, there are a few things that a pub admin at its most simple place, they just register and collect your royalties, usually for a small fee of 15 to 20% of whatever is collected. That's generally all a pub admin does. They also, in addition to being that pub admin and taking that fee, they also take a lot of other exclusive rights that you usually see a traditional publisher do, like the exclusive right to clear samples and interpolations. That was a lawsuit that I had against TuneCore on that very issue, that we didn't know that they had cleared the sample. We went after a label because we thought it was copyright infringement, just to learn that TuneCore had cleared it. There isn't great communication as to that, and there is no reason why that has to be exclusive and not non-exclusive. The other thing is the sync agreement or the sync addendum to the pub admin agreement, which is there's already one checkbox that says, do you want to collect your publishing royalties? You click yes. And then there's another checkbox that's like, by the way, do you want to get more sync opportunities? And again, what artist is going to say no to that? So you click yes, but that sync agreement says that they are now your exclusive sync agent. And the problem with an exclusive sync agent is that if Netflix came to you and said, hey, we want to put your song in this new TV show, you would have to say either I can't because I'm exclusively signed to TuneCore, or you'll have to say, go talk to TuneCore and they will negotiate the sync license on my behalf and they'll get their percentage. Either way, it can get really, really messy.
Would you say it's kind of in the, realm of like kind of like an admin deal, how kind of what you do with like Sound Exchange? Is it kind of like that, but they're just being sneaky about it though?
It's kind of like Sound Exchange, but the terms are worse. And they also are being sneaky about it. And with Sound Exchange, not Sound Exchange, Songtrust. Songtrust is the pub admin. With Songtrust, they are pub admin, and when you go there, you know that you are signing up for the sole reason that you want to have them collect your performance and mechanical royalties. With TuneCore, you are signing up to get your music on Spotify, to get your music on Apple Music and all these other things, and they just have this little, oh, by the way, we can do this too.
Yeah, that is very tough. And I know you and I have talked. You're also a musician. I love your music. One of the things I wanted to touch on, and we have touched on this in the past, but for those that didn't see that first interview, can you talk a little bit about the situation that you discussed online with your music, where you had that big issue with the royalties and the royalty rates?
So I was signed to a record label, and I had an issue where when I was being courted by that label and that A&R, they said, this is a great deal. We're going to get your music in all these different retailers. We're going to license your music everywhere. You're going to get sync opportunities. We're going to generate a lot of revenue for your catalog. They said, your royalty rate is 15%. And this is 11, 12 years ago. And for a brand new artist, that was pretty standard. And, I even at that point, you might have even seen 9 to 12% for a brand new baby artist. So 15%, okay, no problem. Let's go ahead and do it. I license my music to this label. They get my music in all these major retailers across the country. I mean, just everyone that you can imagine. Like, I'd be in the mall and I'd hear my music playing. And so all these big major national retailers times thousands of stores that they have across the country. And I'm thinking I'm going to get a pretty good royalty check when that finally comes in. I get my first royalty statement for the first quarter, and it said that my royalties generated for that quarter were just shy of $1 million for all those licenses. And my take-home pay was $40.
Wow.
I said, how is this possible? I thought my royalty rate was 15%, which would be closer to about $150,000. They said, go back and look at the fine print. Your royalty rate is 15% times a fraction. The numerator of that fraction is how many songs you have licensed to us, which was about 30. The denominator of that fraction is the amount of songs in our entire catalog, which is a few million. So when you break that down, 30 over a few million, it was a 0.003% royalty rate, not a 15% royalty rate.
How can an artist protect themselves from something like that?
I mean, get a lawyer, have them explain to you what's going on, because there's plenty of times in casual conversations and negotiations and in the courting phase of labels reaching out to artists where they promise things that sound really good, and they might not really understand the contract themselves, but you need somebody to kind of check them and make sure that everything that they're telling you is accurately reflected in that contract. I can't tell you how many times where an artist will say that they've been offered this record deal. They tell me all the conversations they had with that A&R or that executive just for us to get that contract, and none of that's in there. And because these contracts have entire agreement clauses, which just say the parties confirm that just the words in this agreement are the only enforceable promises, none of that stuff that was promised before the contract was signed is enforceable. So that's why it's so important to have an artist reach out to a lawyer to confirm all of that.
Right, absolutely. And I had one of my artists that wanted me to make sure I ask you this question. If an artist goes and they purchase a beat, whether they work with the producer directly or if they get it from BeatStars or YouTube, wherever they get the beat, and there's samples in that beat, who's responsible for clearing those samples?
It just depends on that contract itself. Usually, in a BeatStars agreement, it will say that the artist is responsible for the clearance. There are some times where a beat lease agreement can be kind of silent to who's responsible, but there is a representation and warranty that the producer promises that everything is either 100% original or 100% cleared to begin with. That doesn't give you a ton of protections because they might not have read that form agreement to begin with. But I would say the standard practice is that the artist is usually the one who clears the samples. And that's true even up in the major artist label release world. A producer will create something and it's up to the artist and the label to figure out how to actually legally release it.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. Just wanted to make sure we were clear on that. I want to touch base more on like your artistry, and are you still actually recording right now? Because I looked on your YouTube, I didn't see any new songs, but I was just curious if you're still doing that, and like what are some of the challenges and trends and things that you're seeing from an artist / lawyer perspective?
I am still writing. I haven't been in the studio in a long time, but what happened when I went to law school over 10 years ago is I had got it in my head that a lawyer has to be a certain way. I think I was watching like too much Suits, that like if I was going to...
My favorite shows. Yeah.
Oh, it was a great show. I was thinking that if I was going to get a job at one of these big law firms in LA or New York, that I had to look a certain way. And the artist part of my background was a little too out there, a little too artsy, not buttoned up enough for one of those firms. So I did something really stupid and I deleted all my music off of the DSPs, even though some of those had done really well, some of those had even charted on the iTunes charts, but I just got rid of that. And that stayed offline for a really long time. And it wasn't until about this year, once I've kind of reconnected with my music and my artistry, that I said, forget that. This is music that I'm proud of. I now own my own firm and I can call the shots. There's nobody that I don't care if anybody thinks of me in a different way because I have music that's up online and I sing pop music, so that's all being re-released right now. But currently I'm also writing a new record, which would be the first time I've been in the studio and released new music in about 10 years. So I'm excited. Really excited about that. It's kind of a return to my acoustic singer-songwriter roots. That's where it all started, and then along the way turned into more of the pop production world, and now we're getting back to the basics. So I'm excited about that. What am I seeing these days from both an artist and a lawyer as far as trends? I think one thing that I really see, and it's really interesting to see it in both perspectives, is just how hard artists have it from the mental game, right? It's never been easier as far as tools and information to succeed in this music business. But I think there's this real mental block with artists that they either don't know what they need to do next, or they're waiting on somebody else to co-sign them to have their opportunity. What I've learned through being an artist and also helping artists get and navigate these record deals and these opportunities is that nobody's coming to save you and nobody's really paying attention, right? You've got to generate your own heat and your own attention. And it can be really scary at first when you don't understand that because you don't know what to do, but it can also be really empowering once you figure it out that we're in this world with social media that every single day you've got an opportunity to pull up your phone and for free potentially hit a global audience. And that's something that's never happened before. I have artists that I work with that are in the middle of nowhere recording these albums on their laptop in their bedroom, and they are reaching global audiences and signing record deals without ever having played a single show. That's pretty amazing. And they don't have these big publicists and they don't have these big label teams or anything like that. They have just made music and they've figured a way to connect that with an audience, whether that's through streaming or that's through content. So the trends that I see right now is that this game really benefits those who understand social media and how to connect and build an audience.
Absolutely. And what do you think are some ways artists can, or some platforms or strategies they can use to leverage that conversation, even when it comes to the label, right? I'm sure you've done, and I know we talked about this before, brokered some deals for artists, but they don't have leverage in the beginning. I know before everything was points, and, features and all that good stuff. What are some new ways that you're seeing, TikTok and things like that? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, the absolute best way to get leverage is to attract, not chase. If labels are coming to you and they're excited about you, you're already coming from a position of power as far as you getting that attention. It's like we talked about. There's a few different ways to get labels to come to you. It's ads, it's content, it's playlist. If we're talking about the online world, ads, content, playlist. And you really have to be a master of all of them on top of having great music to have a shot in this game. And there's artists that reach out to me and they're like the music is great. I just feel like if somebody just heard it and they'd understood it, then they would sign me. And we're just not playing that game anymore because so many labels now are sitting back and waiting for that organic success. And they're waiting for that song to already be independently successful so then they can sign it and re-upload it through their distribution platform. Because what is a safer bet from an investment standpoint? This song that's already doing really well, and I can invest $10,000 more dollars in it and make it go like this, or some song that has no heat at all, and I might burn that $10,000 and it might still not hit an audience. We're wanting to see the thing that's already hitting. So an independent artist really needs to take control of their career and know the best way to get these opportunities is to run your business the best you can on your own. And then you're in a position where if labels do come, you're either going to be so successful on your own that you're like, I don't need them. Thanks for the offer. I'm doing just fine on my own. Or you're able to walk into that room with a ton of leverage and negotiate the best deal possible.
Yeah, I think some of the issues with that is artists feel like if I'm already doing it, why would I go to a label? It's just a loan. They want to take my publishing. They want to make me sign these contracts. So we mentioned earlier, cross collateralization, 360 deal, things like that. So I think that's some of the problem. And I know you mentioned the mental side of what artists go through. There a lot of artists come to me and they're just fed up. They have good music. It starts to trend, but you have to continuously do it. And they're coming out of pocket. What advice would you give to some folks like that? Even for the legal piece. I mean, we do have things like, the chat GPT and AI and different things that will help them, but it's still, I'm coming out of my pocket for everything, videos and props and, like you said, ads and all these other things. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that, yes, it can be expensive to be an artist, but it can also be really affordable and cost effective. You can be an artist on a shoestring budget.
Right.
Don't let your creativity stop at the music. How many artists make great music and then they're like, I don't know how to make a really engaging video to go along with that, or I don't know what good cover art would fit that. You're creative. Like, what did you have in your mind when you wrote that song? Because this has to be this entire package.
Right.
And there's a bunch of tools that can help you get those assets really cost effectively. I mean, Canva's $15 a month, and that can essentially be your graphic designer in your back pocket. ChatGPT's image generation can be a great, either whether it's references or just album artwork, go nuts. You can certainly use that too. Videos. I wouldn't say that the long form music video is something that every artist needs to do these days. I think that like I said, you've got your cell phone. We're in an algorithm based music industry where it rewards people who take more shots on net, right? So if I had the chance of spending $10,000 for one music video and putting one shot on net, or making 200 posts where one of them could blow up, I'm going the 200 posts, even if it's just on my iPhone and it's just in my bedroom, because I actually have a better chance to win in that game. And then when do I invest in that music video? When I know that song's already picking up steam and that people like it, and then I can send people over to YouTube because they're already fans of that song.